Raila Amolo Odinga's press conference after Monday's maandamano protests was very revealing, extremely revealing. And there are a lot of things that many Kenyans missed from that briefing. Of course, what people got very well, and Azimio supporters were delighted at this, was that now the protests, instead of taking place once a week, as had earlier been announced, will now be unfolding twice a week, on Mondays and Thursdays. In other words, Mondays and Thursdays will not be working days for most Kenyans, right across the board. Of course, depending on where you are and where your business is, etc., etc. Folks, there is no denying that Azimio are super organized. They have a plan, they are working their plan, they have an objective, they're already getting results, and they're looking forward to more results in the medium term and in the long term. Now, those are very interesting remarks, because those are the kind of remarks that should be attributed to a working government. But let me ask you very honestly, and please answer me honestly, bila my feelings. Doesn't matter what side of the political divide you belong to, because this affects all of us. Let's sober up, please. Would you be able to say the same thing about the UDA government? Even before the maandamano, would you be able to say that they're super organized? That clearly they have a plan, and that we're already seeing the results of that plan? And we know that in the medium term and long term, those plans will actually yield something? Can we say that about the UDA government? You tell me what your opinion is. Because in my opinion, the answer is a firm no. By appointing people only from one ethnic community, how will that benefit the country surely? By appointing your cronies to various sensitive positions that you want to control, how will that help the country in the long term? How? Hey, folks, there are some things which are so obvious, that even if you belong to UDA and Kenya Kwanza, you should take note of and talk to your guys, to style up. Please, we're all suffering. Now, there were a few screaming headlines from Raila's statement, which I want to highlight in this video. The first headline, wait for this one: Azimio to take security personnel to the ICC. Oh yes, you heard me right. Let me remind you, if you listen to the speech, Raila said that they are already making efforts using lawyers and security experts to bring to account the actions of certain individuals within our security forces, that resulted in injury of protesters, and of course the unfortunate case of even deaths. And Raila even went beyond that and named names. Oh yes. Now, there's one thing that Kenyans have never gotten, when they're condemning police brutality and things the police did. It is a thing which Kenyans have never ever gotten into their heads. And I understand, we were not all brought up by cops. We don't all understand cops and the way they work. Like yours truly, I understand. And this thing that I've been singing here since 2007, and people ignore, is the following: there is no police officer who will do something without an order, especially if that thing is not exactly legal. or if there's a question mark over the legality of that thing. Now, don't lie to yourself. Cops know the law. How do you enforce the law if you don't know it? They know the law very well. Anyway, what that means is that if a certain policeman is brutal towards a certain protester, that policeman is responsible because he followed an order that is illegal. But there's also somebody else responsible, in fact, more responsible than this poor police officer, who most probably lives in a small room with his wife, which he shares with 2 or 3 other cops. Yeah, so that at night when he's doing his business, fulani anajua, jana kulikuwa hii, and so on and so forth. Very unfortunate. So that poor officer is responsible. But there's somebody more responsible. The person who issued the order. His superior. And that is why in Raila Odinga's statement, he said that Azimio are using lawyers and security experts. Because you'd wonder, why would he need security experts? He would need security experts to be able to trace the chain of command that led to that order. Who is the boss of that person who did this? Who is the boss above this person? Where did they receive their orders from? Where is the evidence? Yeah, they'll assist lawyers to get that evidence. And then Raila dropped the bombshell. He said they will follow up on charging these officers, both locally and internationally. Okay, so there's a screaming headline. Security guys, ICC. International Criminal Court at The Hague. Now, I want us to take careful note of the fact that this is a departure from the past. In 2007, the focus of the ICC were on the people most responsible, right at the top, which was understandable. Yeah, because these were foreigners trying to use locals to gather evidence. And the least important person reached was the Commissioner of Police. Yeah, they didn't go below that. But in this instance, we have a situation whereby the commanding officer in charge of a region and his juniors in charge of a particular police station and the person who actually committed the offense, all of them are on the crosshairs of Azimio and the charges they are filing. Yeah. Now, to be fair to the police, this is not a very good time to be a police officer. And I'll tell you why. You see, when you're issued with an order, you're supposed not to think. And you're supposed to carry out the order immediately, without second guessing your boss who gave it, or without consideration of that order. With this new development, because police officers have brains and they think, they will now be forced into a situation where they need to think and consider the order they've been given to carry out. But you see, their options are limited. In fact, the options are not there. Because if you don't follow the order, there are very dire immediate consequences. And if in the end you're going to get justice, if in the end you're going to be vindicated, it is going to take a very long time. So, if you don't follow an order, you will suffer for a very long time. If you follow the order, then you have to wait to suffer later. So you have to choose one of those two. Not a very easy choice to make, you'll agree with me. Headline number 2. Azimio identify and wish to punish the very dodgy, fishy link between the executive and the corporate world. Now that's a big one, but I'm not sure if most of us understand, so let me break it down. The executive has been very busy in the corporate world, which already is a red flag. Why? Because the corporate world is business. Yeah, these are people looking for profits. So, what is your conclusion right out of the top of your head when the executive is very deeply involved in the corporate world? Tell me. I believe the answer is obvious. Corporate world, money. Executive, power. When you mix those two, power and money, the results are not good. Now, how exactly did Raila do this? By his choice of companies, especially the first two he mentioned, for the boycott, the second part of the protests by Azimio. And these companies are Safaricom and KCB. Now it is in the public domain that there were major changes at the helm of Safaricom, as soon as Ruto took over. Instigated by who? The executive. Okay? We also know that there's been a lot of borrowing from KCB, from the government, and people linked to the government. Now, let me just tell you a story so that you understand this better. During the Moi days, there was a bank called National Bank of Kenya. It still exists today. And if you are a supporter of KANU, especially during the multi-party days, you would get a small note written for you, and you walk into that bank and get a loan of whatever amount you want without any security. That is what used to happen during the Moi days. Now, I don't know what is happening during the Ruto days. I have no idea. Okay? I have information here and there, but it is not verified. Therefore, the truth is, I don't know what is going on. However, thinking back to what was happening during the Moi days, I am very nervous. Let's just leave it at that. The Raila strategy to expose UDA and their inner dealings is very interesting. Very interesting. And I admire it a lot. You don't say anything. Instead, you take action. Boycott these companies. Then you leave people asking questions. You leave journalists researching. You leave individual Kenyans researching. And a lot of this information is in the public domain. Not all of it, but a lot of it that will enable anybody who understands financing to put everything neatly together very quickly. All that info is available in the public domain. You know, I have a very big supporter based in the UK. His name is Jamal. And I'm really grateful to this guy who has stuck with me for a long time. And therefore I'm asking him for permission, and assuming the answer is yes, to use his name in a hypothetical example. So I know Jamal is corrupt, but I don't say Jamal is corrupt. I start mentioning his associates. I start mentioning certain places where he does deals. I point to certain places where Mr. Jamal would not like me to point to. So what do you think the net effect of that will be? It is much more effective than me saying, Bwana Jamal, my dear friend, is corrupt. By the way, for avoidance of doubt, this patriotic Kenyan is straight like a ruler. Straight! Hakuna kando kando. Yeah, so please, this was just a hypothetical example. Let not his friends read anything into this example. Anyway, bottom line, Azimio have made their move. And their move is crazy, crazy, crazy. So now we wait for the response of UDA. Oops, the response has already come. Yeah, and I will cover that in a subsequent video. Of course, the response was UDA members of parliament coming out and saying, arrest Raila Odinga, arrest Uhuru Kenyatta. Okay, there is a reason behind that push. Yeah, and it is in response. Make sure you catch that video. Yeah, I'll try and get it out as soon as possible. Now, I have some good news for you, at least for some of you. My special maandamano offer, I have extended until Thursday. Yeah, this week we don't have protest on Thursday, but next week we will. Yeah, so by end of Thursday, Mapabano offer for my WIB, kwisha maneno. Yeah, you can see details on the screens right now. Please take full advantage of it, because my next WIB, moto kuliko pasi ya makaa, that I'll release on Thursday, you don't want to miss. Trust me. Okay, it talks about the behind the scenes things that are happening right now, at a time when there's so much tension in the country, in our beloved motherland. Until next time, this is Chris. Kumekucha.